Welcome. You're listening to the Leading Hope Podcast. My name is VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us, taking time out of your day to become a better leader. If you're new, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Also visit Leading Hope. Find out more about the Leading Hope community. Share on all the stuff and get this out for your friends that are wanting to become better leaders, just like we're trying to become better leaders. We continue our 7 conversations.
Share on all the stuff.
All the stuff.
Social media,
People
billboards, sidewalk chalk.
Yeah, I feel like if you watch podcasts that you know the stuff.
That's no. I think you're dead on. I mean? I like it.
I still will say it occasionally, but like
let's just use shorthand for all the things.
You know the stuff. If you're a podcast person,
we're here to talk about the stuff. Share on the stuff.
We are on the stuff, but this is the 7 conversations about the top 7 leadership lessons of Kevin Jack. But here's the crazy thing. This is episode 200.
20.
We've entered into another century.
0.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
It is wild. What would you say about it? Like,
started at your house.
Yep.
Sitting across from you
with a phone.
In between us.
Sides of the camera. That's what it did.
We sat on each side of a desk.
Sides of the camera.
And we were like I said, we were close.
Oh yeah.
That was not.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very close.
It's been really fascinating because what originally started as a development tool for some of our people has grown and spread. And I would say it is we're still doing this today for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
One, because it's fun.
It is fun.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
We're learning more as we do it because we do it, because it's causing us to reflect. But the second thing is just we get people all the time who reference an episode or tell us what they're learning or tell us keep going on this.
Yeah.
And I would say that matters. And it hasn't been easy to log 200 episodes.
No.
Is a lot of work.
No.
To log 200 episodes. But I really believe, honestly, just for doing this for us is the thing that keeps us growing.
Yeah.
And making sure we're not getting stuck in prior thinking.
Yeah. For me, I know that, I've completely grown in a number of different places because of this podcast. One of them's hilarious is, I used to get super nervous to do these, in the very early
at the very beginning,
having start to cough up stuff and just get the nerves of stuff and happening. And now it's just, it's second nature. It's just what we do. It's, you know what I mean? There's nothing, there's no nervousness. There's no, anxiety about doing it because it's just, but that's because, and this is, I think, a helpful note for anybody who is afraid of speaking out publicly or on camera or on a stage. Just do it.
Exposure therapy. Just
do it, right? Just do it. Eventually, you will feel differently by the end than you did at the beginning. That's been helpful. And the other part for me is, I have used this part of my life more in ministry than any part is, which is I know better now what questions to ask than I ever have in any point of my life to people who are trying to come to Jesus or understand what the gospel is, relationships, all the things in their lives. I can be a great listener now. And then after done listening, I can ask the right questions because I sit in this chair. And for that, I will be forever grateful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So good, V.
So today, 200. We'll figure out the title here in a second.
Yeah.
But what's the 4th leadership lesson? 4. 7.
So again, we just started this because I was doing this talk on 7 leadership lessons. I've got 30 minutes to do it and was man, each of these require a larger conversation. So the lesson is, and it's stuff that we've talked about before, and we've kind of more so slid it into different episodes. But again, for me, this is a profound piece. And I learned this lesson during COVID, and I learned it because as our team was meeting over Zoom, everyone was doing, I saw some concerning things happen. And I also saw some really incredible things happen because in our old physical office structure, if there was a meeting and someone had a question, they would just come and get me.
Yeah.
And I'd jump in their meeting.
Yeah.
On Zoom, it was more of a hassle
Yeah.
To like, hey, Kevin, would you join our Zoom room? Here's the link. Sometimes I wasn't
What's the
available.
password? You don't need a password. You just need a link.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I had always been told just in the role of a pastor is that pastoring is about presence. And that if you're gonna pastor people well, you have to be with them in those key moments, in those key times.
Yeah.
And I just like give the caveat of like, in a church our size, I can lead everyone. I can't pastor everyone. And I think people are very aware and I would say reasonable within that reality that they can be pastored by someone. You don't have to be pastored by someone who has the title pastor.
Yeah.
The pastoring is a gift more than it is a title.
It's good.
But I was always taught that idea of like pastoring is about presence, being there in key moments. And what I realized in this thing that was taking place on Zoom, and I'll give like a more clear phrase in just a second, but that leadership is as much about absence as it is about presence. That there's a time as a leader which you absolutely have to be present as you're casting vision, as you're developing, as you're coaching. All these other things require presence. But the role of leader, like the goal of leadership, is to empower so that someone else can go do what you do and even do it better than you do it. And empowerment requires absence. And so like my leadership lesson in this is pastoring is about presence, but leadership is about strategic absence. It is about knowing when to exit the situation so someone can actually step into their gifting and step into their calling.
It's good. Very tricky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the only way we can really go with this because some people will walk out of a burning building because they want to be absent to grow their team. That's not really going to be helpful. On the other side of it, you're always hovering, wanting to be in all the meetings.
Yes.
That's also not going to be helpful.
Correct.
How do you define the absence and more importantly, the timing around the absence?
Yeah, I think that's more art than science. But I think one of the adages that I've held on to is just the idea that no one's, I kind of liken it back to when people talk about like having a kid. It's like, how do we know if we're ready? Like, you're not. Just so you know, you're not ready. I can promise you, you'll never be ready.
Yeah, that's
until
good.
You actually have it, and even then, you won't feel like you're ready, but you are at that point in time. And one of the things that I remember I just got taught in like school in training to be a pastor was like, if there's a question as to whether or not you should show up, show up. If there's a question of like, do I need to be at this hospital? Do I need to be here? If it's a question,
it's good.
Just show up.
That's great.
But with leadership, it's the exact opposite. If there's a question as to whether or not you should show up, don't show up. If there's a question as to the person can handle the meeting themselves, handle the issue themselves, if you think that they might be able to, let them do it. Because they will grow more in that process of being on their own than they ever will if you're continuously hovering over their shoulder.
Yeah.
And I think especially in pastoral ministry, I think people struggle with the distinction between when they're the pastor and when they are the leader. And people have done great things through continuous presence as a pastor, but they have also stunted the growth of everyone around them because they've never been able to make that distinction of, I need to be a pastor here, but I need to operate more as a leader here.
That's super interesting. There's so many things I want to go with this because I think a lot of people who are listening are like, oh, this is intriguing because in several facets of my job, I don't know where to enter and where to exit. I think that's a struggle for, especially for high level leadership, because like you said at the beginning, it's multiplication. You are to replicate yourself. Right. As many times over as you can. That's how you get massive things done. Right. How you develop people. Right. And by not being the lid, right? Because you will be the lid if you're doing it all. So let's go back to the scenario of, because in the corporate world, absence isn't a thing. I would actually argue that in the church world, ministry, absence is a huge thing. Like,
keep talking.
In corporate world, like, we are driving very hard metrics Like,
Yep.
you don't get this, we don't make the sale, we don't have the money, we don't operate, you don't have a job. And hold on, let me finish.
Yeah,
It's really
go
fun.
ahead.
In ministry, it's, hey guys, let's just make sure that we have some relationships with some people and get some coffees. And then, if you have to be absent, just be as absent as you need to be. These are generalizations.
Yeah, I think you're
Just to drive the
I think your
difference between
distinction is like you're equating the lack of a clear strategy
Sure.
with absence, and that's not the case.
Okay.
For most churches, every important meeting, the senior leader is in and running.
Okay.
Like I could say, as in the church that we planted, if I was in a meeting, I was running it.
Got it.
And I was in a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Right. And that makes sense, but I still think, generally speaking, and I want that to change, like,
Yeah.
personally and collectively for the capital C church.
I think so if I could make the distinction, when I say strategic absence, I don't mean lack of accountability and I don't mean lack of strategy.
That's what I want. I think
Cool.
that's what people were trying to hear, because they're like, absent, great, I'll just let them do it.
No. Yep, that's good. That's a good
That's
statement.
what I'm trying to get to. Like,
I
hey,
am
they
aware.
can do it. It'll just happen.
So let's so then maybe if we could characterize it like this to make sure it hits home, is to say like absence is not like healthy absence is not hiring someone and saying go get them.
Yeah.
That's not leadership at all.
Yeah, and I want to press that issue because I think a lot of people think that
Yeah.
you made the right hire,
Correct.
they will crush it.
You need agreed upon goals, agreed upon outcomes.
Yeah.
And you need at least a coherent strategy in place in order to empower, in order to free someone to go work. And I would say in most churches, what I see is we've never defined the outcome that we're after. We've never defined the strategy that we're going to pursue.
Yeah.
But let me give an example. There's this great, I forget what it's on. I think it's on Max, what used to be HBO Max.
Yeah.
It's Nick Saban and Bill Belichick.
Oh, yeah. It was great.
And Nick Saban was on Bill Belichick's staff for a little while. And Nick Saban made the comment. He said, "You're the only coach I ever worked for that I knew exactly what you wanted me to do, and then you let me do it."
Yeah.
He said, every other coach I worked for, I had a vague idea, and then I had them constantly hovering over my shoulder. He said, so I never was able to do what I wanted to do, but I never actually really knew what I was driving towards. You made sure I knew the exact outcome that you expected me to achieve.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have to deal with you.
Yeah.
I could just go after it.
Yeah. And I think that's true across the board. I mean,
Yeah.
that's there's no way.
It's not a ministry distinction. It's
Right.
a leadership tendency.
I think I think you hit the nail on the head with the accountability piece. So like if I'm going to be I don't need to be in all the meetings if the people know the outcome of the meetings.
Yep.
Right.
But if I haven't done that hard work on the front end.
Right. But let's just assume you have, right? There is a piece that comes from that leadership to the accountability, because accountability is a management piece.
Yes.
And I think that's the distinction, because leaders sometimes think they don't have to. I can just lead without the accountability is tied to the check-in, which is the management.
Yep.
So it's this big, long process. And so that I just don't want people to walk away from this episode going,
I need to do nothing.
Just need to be more. I know they're not saying that, but I want you to be very clear on that strategy of being absent. What does that look like on a week to week, maybe a month to month basis? Not a day to day, but like a week to week. Like, what are the practices that you're putting in place from like monthly to weekly? Not a day to day. I know you're the last guy at this establishment, this organization, this church, to be walking in going, well, what are you working on today?
Yep.
Like, you're not that guy, right?
Correct.
I kind of sometimes am.
You have to be.
But you're not, and that's different. But like, what are you doing as a strategy for your employment?
I don't have to be that guy.
Right.
Because you're that guy. if you weren't that guy, I would have to be that guy.
Fair. But what are you doing to make sure like that you're contributing to that the way that you feel like you're called to contribute to it?
So I think the process that I run through is just to say it as one, like empowerment is partially earned.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because of ability, because of credibility, like track record.
Yeah.
So empowerment is earned, but empowerment must be given before it's earned.
That's good.
And so if you're waiting for someone to prove themselves, to give them authority, they never have the opportunity to prove themselves.
That's good.
And so it's like the sense of like, how can I be a manager if I don't have management experience? When every position of a manager requires management experience.
That's exactly right.
So we run down on that path. But if I could give like parameters, so at the church plan I led, I was too present.
Yeah. I
was in everything. And that was my fault. I didn't understand how to make myself absent strategically.
Yeah.
And then I got a little better at it at Be Hope. I got a lot better at it at Be Hope. Part of it was having really good leaders.
Yeah.
That made it easier. But like I look at it here and I go, I'm in the office 2 days a week, 2.5 days a week.
Yeah.
I lead one meeting.
Right.
A week.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm in other meetings in which I can contribute perspective. I can clarify decisions. I have to be cautious not to take over those meetings because that's a tendency.
Yeah.
But I lead one meeting a week. And that's I think that's a healthy thing for me.
Yeah.
And it's a healthy thing for the organization as a whole.
So this is really good, especially for people listening and trying to lead at a high level, with this specific lesson. How do you make sure that you don't let, not worry, but
yeah,
what do you do to ensure that, hey, I can lead this one meeting and it's enough and there's no fires going to happen, or I know there's going to happen, but they're not going to be so bad that I don't have to interject myself. And you understand what I'm saying? Like there's got to be a sense of good weight. And we've talked about that before, but what is it for you that says, yep, I'll lead this one meeting, good to go, and I don't have to worry?
Yeah. I don't think my role is to help the church avoid mistakes. I believe my role is to grow and develop people.
Okay.
And so
how do you do that with one meeting?
I'm not obsessed about fixing things on the front end. I make sure we fix them on the back end, which is maybe the opposite of what everyone thinks.
That's really interesting.
And I'm not talking about technical things. Okay.
Yeah. No.
Because you could be like literally like when we talk like service planning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're not going to go through and on the slide,
right.
There's a misspelled word on every slide. We'll fix it on the back end.
Yeah, right. I understand that.
Okay. That's not the parameter there.
Right.
But I would say like errors in thinking, errors in decisions. Sometimes people will call me in just to be like, hey, I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Yeah.
And I try not to make the decision for them. I tried to present a more coherent framework on how to think.
Right.
So that's actively what I'm doing. But on the other side of it is, so I lead one meeting. I'm a part of a lot of evaluation meetings.
Yeah.
And I have to be cautious. And I don't think I really run the risk of this, but I would just caution other people.
Yeah.
I don't run the risk of being the person who tears people apart in the postmortem.
Yeah.
Like I really, would that be accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask that?
Okay. For sure.
I really don't feel like I'm that kind of personality that someone's like, I got to brace myself because he's going to have a checklist of 100 things that are wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's
not your default.
Yeah. But I will clarify to say like, hey, when we look at it, let's look at it through these parameters next time.
Yeah.
Because we've got some blind spots here.
That's good. 1 minute left.
Sum up
this leadership lesson in the fourth conversation, and you probably need to give it a title.
Let's title it Presence and Absence.
Presence and presence, like I gave you a gift.
No.
Okay.
PRESENC.
There we go.
Presence.
I love it.
And ABSENC. There you go. That's hard to spell without writing it down. Yeah. But the idea on there of to say like presence is not always positive and absence is not always negative.
It's good.
Now, don't invert that.
Yeah.
And assume presence is always negative and absence is always positive. But to understand, hey, with your team, there's a balance there. And if you're always there, you're now the lid to their growth, which is something you can't be. One of the things I'm very strategic about is if someone else is gifted in an area, I believe it is my responsibility to exit that lane and to find a new lane. And I think some leaders go, well, this is my gifting. Y'all just have to let me run in it and you fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And to go, I don't think that's my role. Now, I'm not doing stuff I'm bad at, but like, as we hire people, as we develop our team, if someone's gifted at something, I think it's my job to go, okay, you run with that.
That's good.
I'll figure out where I can fill in.
That's great. There you go. Thank you for joining us today. It's the 4th conversation out of 7's top leadership lessons. We're so glad you joined the podcast today. If you're new, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Also share this on all the stuff, as we've said before, because you know what that stuff is, and we don't need to tell you. Well, we will. And visit leadinghope.online, get more information, sign up for the newsletter. We'll send that. Be part of the Leading Hope community who's getting better just like we're trying to get better. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count. Woo!